I'd like to seek a motion to pass the chair back to the Mayor. Councillor Gillies, seconded by Councillor Bolton. All those in favour? Okay.
We'll note your dissent, Councillor Tapanos. We'll move now to the substantive motion. Thank you, Councillor Davidson, for chairing. Are there any further amendments? Is there any further debate on the motion? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those opposed? I declare that carried.
Can I move point 2, please?
Yes, Councillor Kavanagh moves point 2, and can we please get Councillor Gildiz back in the chamber? Yes, seconded by Councillor Ratnam. Thank you, Councillor Gildiz. Councillor Kavanagh.
I would withhold my right to speak to close the debate, please.
Okay. Councillor Ratnam? No. Is there any debate or amendment?
I have an amendment.
Councillor Tapanos.
To amend what I guess was 2, but now might be 1 in that sense, to approve a total of 10 applications to the value of $306,638 for funding in the Capital Works Partnership Grant category as recommended in attachment 2, and also the following points. So to insert point 3, Council approve a partial grant of $10,000 towards the Australian Association of Custodians Association. The Council recognise the scope of the project is large and requires to be staged over a number of years. Council officers work with the Association to stage the required works in their application. The grant will enable the Association to scope and begin the first stage of works on the building. The Association is also required to contribute $10,000 towards the first stage of works on the building, bringing the total cost of the project to $20,000, including in-kind support. The proposal provides increased access and participation for culturally diverse communities and encourages diversity of activities and opportunities. The proposal enables the use of the facility by people with disabilities and elderly residents. The proposal addresses a gap in the provision of local facilities in the North Coburg area, since the building is located on Elizabeth Street, north of the Kodak development. And point 4, that Council recognises that many cultural associations require additional support in completing the application forms and scoping for their required projects. Council encourages more applicants from cultural organisations. And if I have a seconder, I'll speak.
It's seconded by Councillor Gildiz. Councillor Tapanos.
Look, we've had these grant applications now for a number of years, and it's one of the best things Council does. I honestly think we get tremendous value for money, particularly when there is co-contributions and associations and incorporated organisations assist by providing their expertise. We certainly get a lot of value for money for the projects. Now, I know the Custodian Association is a cultural association that's worked for Council for 2 years, and they've had numerous meetings and they've been going up and down, and they applied now for the second time for this grant. The first time they were not successful because the application was incomplete. The second time we are finding that still more information is required because they've scoped all of their wish list effectively, and a huge project which is over $200,000. So in recognising what the application is, I believe that there is significant merit to it. It talks about disability toilets, it talks about providing ramps for disability, it talks about lifts, it talks about fixing the kitchen, it talks about a whole range of very valued projects to enable an association with a lot of elderly residents in our city to be able to access activities that occur in that facility and to be able to end social isolation by being able to go there during the day and participate in all the activities. So, councillors, I think this one is a good one to be supporting with a small grant of $10,000. The original application was $40,000. I think we should grant them 10 and say, work towards a stage 1, and we can talk about subsequent improvements and other stages further in. I believe this will be more fair than actually to say, no, go away, you're not getting anything. Thank you for working with us for 2 years, but your application is probably incomplete or all the information is not there. So I don't say this about all associations, but I think this one in particular, considering it is made up of elderly people from a background other than English. We've heard that they've had significant language barriers in putting their applications together. I think that warrants some special consideration in the process. And I know that it is difficult for cultural organisations, and we see by the applications, this grant is open to them, but we hardly see any of them apply because it is so difficult. And if you have a look at the money we're granting just under $300,000 without this additional 10. They are predominantly sporting clubs that are owned by council. They are childcare centres that are owned by council. So I think at some point we need to say there is value in supporting our culturally diverse community and supporting culturally diverse organisations with providing them grants. Perhaps the grant system doesn't work for them at the moment and we need to look to change it. But I think it's a very important statement to say that in our grant application, we're not going to just support council-owned facilities. That's not what the grant's there for. We're not just going to support sporting clubs and professional organisations, but we're going to support those non-for-profits who work tirelessly and have language barriers. So I'll say councillors, approve this additional grant. It's a small amount of money. It lives up to our motto, one community, proudly diverse. We need to provide more support for our multicultural community. Out of $300,000 to give $10,000 to a multiculturally diverse group is a small amount of money.
Thank you, Councillor Tapanos. Councillor Yildiz, do you wish to speak?
Can I just say, I know the Acting Director, Barry Hahn, I think this group needs some support in terms of completing the application, and I know Sophia's here and they have got limited resources, but they've also got limited understanding of the English language, but in particular how to apply for grants. And I concur with Councillor Tapanos because this group has been around for quite a while. They do engage the Morley community in particular. There is a fairly large custodian people with that background here in Australia. A lot of them are born here, but we also have, I think, first-generation custodians here. And having visited Custoria, absolute delight it was to visit some of the people that, in fact, have come from various towns in and around Custoria. But that community needs this $10,000 as much as many of these other organisations. You know, I think the reason why officers didn't approve this was because of the process in completing the application. I think it would be a good idea to have, Sophia's doing everything pretty much, even from their financials right through to their bookkeeping. It's a lot of work for one person, and that's, again, I think it's a cultural thing that's the issue here. But I think we need to spend a bit of R&R with her just to go through some of the processes to ensure that next time round you do in fact sit here and we don't have these amendments up again. So I certainly agree with Councillor Tapanos' comments, and I won't take 10 minutes to express them.
3 minutes and 3 seconds, I assure you, Councillor Yildiz. Are there any speakers against Councillor Tapanos' amendment? Councillor Kavanagh.
I want to speak against the amendment. Can I say that I think you really should go through the applications here, Councillor Tapanos. There are many from culturally and linguistically diverse, many that have been accepted. There are some absolutely magnificent projects here that have been endorsed and with this resolution tonight will receive funding as they should. Right? It's nothing against this group, but there are many groups that have missed out on the funding. When I first came onto council, we only had 100,000 in this. We've built it up over time to now $410,000. I'm happy to build it up further. But you'll see that, in fact, we are supporting culturally and linguistically diverse groups. We're supporting a group here that the whole program is to get people involved in the workplace, to prepare them for work. We've got other people that are doing amazingly important work. And many of those have been funded. Some of the groups that haven't been funded include Turner Street Kindergarten, Brunswick East Kindergarten, East Coburg Tennis Courts, H.E. Kane Kindergarten. The fact is that I think there's around $800,000 worth of applications for $410,000. So some groups will have to miss out, unfortunately. I'm confident in what the officers have recommended. I'm confident that they've looked at these things carefully. I'm confident, as I am, and in fact enthused at the groups that will receive funding. That's not to say I'm not sorry for those that haven't been recommended, but I believe that this has been an incredibly thorough process. I know that our grants officer has had, I think, 10 sessions where any group can come up and sit almost one-on-one and go through their application with them. If groups haven't availed themselves of that and they're asking for funding, I must say I don't think that's the right thing. I think groups should be availing themselves of the opportunities that they've been given. It's not like council officers are removed from the groups. I know that they're prepared to help them in any way possible with their applications, and that's evidenced by some of the groups here that are really socially disadvantaged and linguistically disadvantaged, and yet they're put in an application and they're receiving funding, as they should.
Thank you, Councillor Kavanagh. Any further speakers in favour of the amendment? No? Any further? Yeah?
I feel that Councillor Tapanos has covered it pretty thoroughly, but when I sort of look through the list of the grant projects, I know Councillor Kavanagh says that there are various linguistically diverse community groups which have received funding. I don't think there are many in the same sort of category as the Custodian Association. I mean, I do feel that some groups are very experienced with applying for grants. Some groups have done it many times before. Some groups have individuals involved in them who have had experience, even if the group as a whole hasn't had experience with applying for grants. But there are also a lot of groups which are community groups which are very intimidated by the grants process because it is quite a bureaucratic process, because it needs to be, because it is regarding finances. I do feel that there isn't... I do feel that there aren't as many of the groups representing the migrant communities that do get grants as part of the grant process. And I do feel that there have been some barriers to this particular group, and I'd be... so I'm speaking in support of a partial grant. Certainly I wouldn't be supporting the full grant without a much more information and so forth. But I think we do need more work with this particular organisation. I think the president of the Custodian Association doesn't speak any English, I believe. So it is... these are part of the more struggling parts of the Moreland community, and so on that basis, I would like to support this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Ratnam.
I'd like to speak about a few concerns I have with the amendment. As has been spoken about before, none of us really want to get up here and speak against funding and supporting community organisations that we really, really value. So I think that has to be on the table, that we're all supportive of supporting the various, particularly multicultural groups and associations within the community. However, as outlined in the report, the concerns, one of the reasons it hasn't been recommended for funding is that the officers look at the scope of the project, they look at what funds are being applied for, and then they assess, all right, does it look like the group has the extra funds, if it actually requires extra funds, to actually complete this project within the financial year, because they actually have to quit it. They've got to show that they've spent the money in that year so that we can then roll out the next year's worth of projects. So they actually look at the sustainability and the viability of projects in their assessment. And some of the comments that have been made are that the project is actually a $213,000 project and $40,000 has been applied for, and the group at the moment doesn't have a lot of extra funds to be able to support that. In fact, has about $3,000 or $4,000. Very worthy to be able to fundraise it, but I think the officers also have to look at, well, in 12 months, are you going to be able to fundraise $150,000? And if so, can the project be completed within the 12 months? Some of the recommendations in the report are that officers are going to work with the association to rescope the project, to look at a project that if we provided some funds, maybe all the funds could actually be implemented within the year. So we don't want to set up organisations to fail either. And so that's our duty, to work with them. And officers have undertaken to do that work. They have been doing that work. They've made a note here that they're going to work to rescope the project for the next grant round, so that we actually have a project that we can be really confident and say, look, we've done the most amount we can here, we've provided the most amount of funding, and this project is going to be realised and built within the year. Because we owe it to all the other groups who are not getting funded to fund projects that actually have some viability. It's not fair on all the other ones that were rejected. So it's nothing against the association, which I really support. I really want to see a fully fleshed out, properly scoped project come to this council, which we can approve wholeheartedly with full confidence. I don't think it's there yet. All that's being asked for is a few more months so that officers can work with the association so we have a viable project in front of us. So I think it's poor decision making if we don't adhere to that process, which we've been advised very strongly about.
Thank you, Councillor Ratnam. Is there any further debate before I allow Councillor Tapanos to close the debate on this amendment? No? Councillor Tapanos.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. Just in regards to what's been heard, yes, I guess when the community association started looking at this, they sort of developed a bit of a wish list, and it did accumulate to approximately $213,000 of a wish list. I guess what officers have said, and I do agree, that more work needs to occur, and that is unsustainable. But this motion is not about $213,000. It's about 10. That's a very small sum compared to the 200. It's about starting the works. It's about developing the scope. It's about saying, let's make a start with 10,000, which will be matched, and let's develop a $20,000 program, and then we can stage the rest. We can talk to the community group about how are they going to progress and find the rest of the funding to undertake the projects. A project like this might mean ramps. It might mean one lift. It might mean tiles in the kitchen. But it won't mean everything, but it would at least mean one of those projects gets underway. So I'm not suggesting that the $40,000 be granted, and I'm not suggesting that the $200,000 project will proceed. We're saying reasonably allow a small grants to allow the process to begin. We were debating this same application this time last year, and many of the same issues came up. It was council's officers need to work with the group. Well, a whole year later, and we're saying council officers need to work with the group. I say we need to actually put some money on the table and say, here is $10,000, match it, get the project underway, and then we'll work with you to develop processes and grants, and there will be Victorian Multicultural Commission grants available to realise the project. And if the whole project isn't realised, and they end up with a brand new kitchen out of this, well, that in itself is a worthy project. And look, just the other comments, it is the only cultural organisation, the ones that have been funded, and I'll just quickly go because Councillor Kavanagh did mention most of them. We're talking about St Matthew's Anglican Church in Glenroy. We're talking about Moreland City Soccer Club, Pascoe Vale Soccer Club. We are talking about the Hope Centre, Moreland City Youth Ballet Incorporated, and we are talking about Hadfield Sporting Club, Hadfield Tennis Club, Dawson Street Childcare Cooperative, and the Glenroy West Kindergarten. These are the ones that have been funded under this category. I don't see any cultural organisations amongst them, and I don't want to detract that there would be, obviously, our diverse community, our multicultural community will be involved in each and every one of those associations. I don't want to detract about that, but there isn't an association, and we have many of them in Moreland that represent migrants that are getting any money in this round. And that was the point I wanted to make.
Thank you, Councillor Tapanos. I'll now put Councillor Tapanos's amendment. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried, and it forms part of the substantive motion. Are there any further amendments to the Community Grants Program Part 2? No? Any further debate?
If there's no debate, I'll close.
Oh, yes, I'll allow Councillor Kavanagh to close the debate.
Yes. Just to make the point that in spite of that small disagreement, this is an incredibly important report. It's a great thing. They're approving just now, we're approving over $300,000 worth of community works in Moreland, funding of that. and some fantastic projects, including, for example, you mentioned a couple of them, the Hope Centre in Glenroy. They're just a magnificent organisation, and I'm so pleased to see that they're being funded. The Hadfield Tennis Club, the Hadfield Sporting Club, Dawson Street Childcare, providing shade sales, etc. Like, you look at a whole range of projects which are delivering for the people of Moreland. So it is a really wonderful report, and on behalf of I want to say thank you to the ratepayer, because basically, of course, their rates are paying for this. So thank you for doing that and for improving our community.
Thank you, Councillor Kavanagh. I'll now conclude the debate and put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those opposed? I declare that carried. DED 5915, Amendment C134 to the Moreland Planning Scheme, Brunswick Activity Centre.
Council Mayor, I apologise for the interruption of members of the council. However, I have come along this evening hoping to speak in support of the Strategic Planning Department's report and recommendation, not realising that question time was the opportunity to speak.
Right.
I thought there were two separate
I
processes.
apologise. I actually did clarify very specifically at the start of question time that it was the only opportunity for members of the public to contribute to the debate. So I'm sorry, but we can't return to public speaking. But thank you very much for coming along. We now do need to debate the motion before council. So is there a mover to DED 5915?
Yeah,
I'm happy to move, but I'm also happy to move to suspend standing orders and hear one comment from the gallery.
Yeah, okay. Move to suspend standing orders and hear one comment from the gallery, and seconded. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. Please come forward and state your name and go ahead.
Again, good evening, councillors and Madame Mayor, and I apologise
That's okay.
for this, and I'll remember this lesson in governance
No, that's all right.
moving forward. I act on behalf of the owner of 8 Michael Street in Brunswick. They're affected by C134 and are extremely pleased with the council officer's recommendation, specifically option A, to adopt the panel's recommendation of discretionary height controls, noting that there's substantial other frameworks within the Moreland planning scheme to manage those particular considerations. There's also the upcoming apartment design code, existing policies, and other clear design objectives within that framework. So again, we offer our support for option A. I think that council officers have done a fantastic job with this amendment over the years, and we're glad to see it finally at the finishing point. So again,
That's a we.
yeah. I'll keep it short and sweet, and again, I apologise. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for your
Option A.
contribution. And I'm very glad I didn't wear that blazer this evening, because I have exactly the same one.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tapanos.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, councillors, and thank you for that submission. Unfortunately, I'm probably going to disappoint you. As I stand, I will move that council adopt option B in the council report. And I'll speak further if I have a second.
Thank you, Councillor Tapanos. Is there a seconder?
I'm going to move an amendment. I'll second an amendment. I've got
Oh,
amendment as well,
everyone's got
so-
amendments. Somebody's got a second. Seconded Councillor Lenker-Thompson. Councillor Tapanos.
Okay. If councillors would be aware, and I think former councillors who are in the gallery, Mark Higginbotham and others, started this process to develop a structure plan which will eventually determine the planning scheme amendments to work out how planning is going to occur in the city of Brunswick, in particular with this one, and similar processes were started for Coburg and Glenroy. And so many years later, we are still here, but we are making slowly some progress. Unfortunately, this one has been delayed, it has been split in two, it has gone back, it's gone forward, and whilst all of that's occurred, development in Brunswick continues to occur way above and beyond what we and the community envisaged when they developed the structure plan. A big difference between option A and option B is one word, the word mandatory as opposed to discretionary. And what that means is that the amendment has set height limits designed for each parcel of land and for each area. And the policy says that they are discretionary. So quite often applicants come in and say, I hear you, there's a 5-storey limit here, which is a discretionary, and I'm applying for 6, or I'm applying for 7. And I'm offering really good design offering really good design, and that should warrant me getting some extra levels. But unfortunately, That has resulted in applicants not getting potentially one story, but two and sometimes even three stories above the structure plan limit. And they not only have one shot at it either, quite often they use lawyers and representatives, and if they don't get what they want at council, they go to VCAT and they have another bite at the cherry. And it's all and it all comes down to defining what is this word discretionary, and what it means and how do we justify additional levels. So tonight, councillors, and I know this hasn't been supported by officers in the past, and it hasn't been supported by the independent panel. But tonight, council, I think you've got to send a very loud message to say we want that word to be mandatory. We want the heights that the community agreed to in the structure plans to be the heights. We don't want people to say, but can I have one extra level? Or can I have another one? And then go to VCAT and argue for another one on top of that. We want good design. We are developing codes for that. We are developing an amendment for that. We want good design. We want good quality design, but we also want the heights that the community agreed to. So it's going to be a tough battle. And from here on, whatever the decision of council is, it will go to the minister and the minister will make a determination. But I think it's important as a council to say very loud and clear, it should be mandatory, not discretionary.
Thank you, Councillor Tapanos. Now, I'm trying to recall who the seconder was.
I'll let the amendments go.
Okay, so any amendments to this package? Yes, Councillor
I'd like to
Ratner.
move some amendments in two parts. I think they should be voted on separately. So first amendment is supporting Councillor Tapanos's option B with an additional point with the retention of third-party notice and review rights, and then an additional amendment that we retain, along with option B, retain the affordable housing provision, as has been exhibited in the amendment, that specifies the objective will be that within the Brunswick Activity Centre, ensure at least 20% of dwellings within developments of 10 or more dwellings are allocated as affordable to be owned and managed by a registered housing association, housing provider or similar not-for-profit organisation. So those are the two amendments, the retention of third-party notice and review rights and the retention of the affordable housing provision as exhibited in the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Ratnam. Is there a seconder? Seconded Councillor.
Are you right?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Seconded Councillor Davidson.
Yep.
Councillor
I'm happy to
Ratnam.
accept it.
Vote on it, don't we?
No, we'll vote on it separately.
I concur with a lot of Councillor Tapanos's comments about the option B, so I'll speak to both parts if that's okay, to the amendments as well as the substantive motion, because I might not get another opportunity. I too am very supportive of the mandatory control, height control provisions as specified in option B. For us going forward, I think it's been a very consistent position of this council since we started in 2012 about wanting mandatory controls, and that was for a number of reasons, which I don't actually think were canvassed in depth through the report and the panel recommendations. I think there are other pressures when you start moving towards discretionary height controls that we are seeing every month at the Urban Planning Committee meeting, and you are seeing every day as you drive or walk down your street. Residents need certainty and clarity. That's what we've been arguing for. We've said we're happy to be generous, we're happy to think about compromises. We looked at the Sydney Upfield Road corridor to put in more density as a trade-off for some of the controls that we wanted. So we came to the party with the state government and said we're going to do that. Discretionary controls put an incredible inflationary pressure on land values, and I think we can't ignore just what a big impact that has in terms of housing affordability. So if you've got a block that could potentially hold 5 stories under mandatory controls, but under discretionary controls, the developer goes, well, we could get 7 or 8, therefore it's worth this much, I'm going to sell it for that much, and then the developer has to build those 7 or 8 stories to be able to recoup the cost of the land that they have just purchased. You have this vicious cycle spiralling, which we see time and time and again at UPC meetings. And I think it adds to this broader issue we have of the housing bubble and affordability crisis we have across Australia. I'm not sure why state governments aren't thinking about mandatory controls as a way of controlling that as well, because we've got incredible pressure on this land values. In terms of the amendments, I think it is really crucial that we maintain third-party review notice and review rights. It's a fundamental right of a resident to be able to have some sense of control or say in your immediate amenity. And we see again, time and time again, in very practical examples where that actually yields much better outcomes. When somebody might bring up an issue that nobody actually else has thought about, and it gives it airtime that we make an alternative recommendation, the developer actually says, oh, I'll take that on board and I'll make this improve the outcome. So I don't think we can ignore the value of that process. And in terms of the affordable housing provision, I want to note that unlike C123, I think the affordable housing provision in this amendment has stayed within it for much longer than the previous amendment, which says something about it. I know people have some concerns about it, but we are saying here that we want housing to be affordable in our municipality. Yes, we're going to have to work at the mechanisms by which to introduce this, but it says to developers, well, you've got to give something back when you're making huge profits on these developments. If it's made it to exhibition, so the community have actually been informed, while the panel has recommended that we take that provision out, I don't see any real justification for it. And what it does is just loosen the whole goal, and we have a statement saying we're going to work towards affordable housing provision, but we all know what that means. It means that 1% can count, and we rarely even see 1%. So we've got to set the standard, and I think we've got to communicate our intentions very, very strongly. And I think this is absolutely critical for this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Ratnam. Is there any further debate on this amendment? Councillor Bolton. If Councillor Rob Thompson is speaking against, then I'll take him first. Councillor Rob Thompson.
I concur with most of Councillor Ratnam's suggestions in the amendment. However, if we're going to go with a statutory height of 5 stories, perhaps, and then we dictate to the developer or the builder that they then must implement a 20% affordable housing, that's a complete level, and makes it somewhat difficult for those developers to then to start returning profits, whether they be slim or large. And I think we can't have it both ways. I would be much more preferable to take our mandatory heights, which we're attempting to enforce, but I don't think at 20%, which is unattainable anywhere, and we know that from some of the work that we've done on land that we currently own, it just seems to be a bridge too far. I would be much more, happy with a 5% or even possibly 10%, but at 20%, that is 1 in every 5 levels would need to be affordable housing, and I'm still unconvinced as to how affordable housing moves forward once it's sold the first time, or how it actually gets managed, and it just gets lost, and it only becomes affordable the first time, and after that it can become, a minefield.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Bolton.
Well, I'd absolutely like to speak in support of third-party notice and review rights being retained within this amendment. I think that's really critical. This amendment, the argument that's put in the report for removing those rights is that there has been extensive community consultation on this amendment. And it's true, there has been extensive community consultation, but this amendment is taking place over quite a few years. Some of the residents who were originally involved in the consultation have left the municipality, and new residents who moved in, several years ago haven't necessarily been part of that consultation. There also may be issues which haven't been thought about, which might get raised in the future. I'm totally opposed to any kind of reduction of democracy. I think it's really problematic, any kind of reduction of democracy, especially with planning issues, but with any issue really. And just secondly, with regard to the affordable housing, I think the removal of any target, it just means that it removes any kind of pressure on us to do anything serious about affordable housing. I think we need to keep this within the amendment, this 20% threshold, so that it puts some pressure on us as councillors to try and work out how we can achieve this. I think it's absolutely critical. The level of housing crisis is something at the moment that I haven't seen in my lifetime. It is increasing astronomically and all over Australia, and very evident in Melbourne at the moment. I just think we absolutely have to keep this in. Otherwise, as a society, we're going to face a total crisis. And with the mandatory height limits, I certainly agree, especially with the comments that Councillor Ratnam made about speculation. I think that is the key reason why we're seeing housing is so unaffordable now, not just for people who are buying housing, but people who are renting as well, and including people who are renting just a single room in a share house. So I absolutely support this option B with these amendments.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is there any further debate to these amendments? Yes, Councillor Lincoln-Thompson.
I'd like to speak in favour of the amendment that was put up by Councillor Ratnam, and just noting, that interesting take that she made about the increase of the land value and the inflationary impact that it has with discretionary heights, and also, I guess, to take that a bit further with discretionary heights, that could also have an impact on how council sort of plans for future planning. If there's an increased population, or if we're not sure what the population increase is going to be, then what kind of impact that will have on infrastructure and how we are to supply the appropriate infrastructure for the people coming into our municipality. So I thought, there's an interesting take on it. And also with the affordable housing amendment, I've spoken before about affordable housing and how it is a must, and I speak very strongly in favour of it. And note that Councillor Thompson's, concerns about how it is going to be delivered through the development community, the developer community. I guess we just got to look at different ways in how we develop. We've got to find different ways of building our structures, maybe using different styles in how we construct, or different methods. I guess just going back to some of the projects like the Commons and what the Nightingale is coming back at, looking at different options and way the developing community can actually deliver projects, high quality projects, at a lesser cost. So, and as Councillor Bolton was saying, we need to really push for this. If we haven't got that 20% provision in, then what's the incentive to really push the boundaries in which we can really realise affordable housing coming into Moreland? And again, with the third-party appeal rights, it is every resident's right should be part of their municipality. So I commend Councillor Ratnam for this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Lincoln-Thompson. Is there any further debate?
Can I speak on the amendment or just?
On the amendment? Yes, you can.
There's
But
two amendments, right?
There's two amendments.
Well,
is it?
one's the third
Sure.
We're going to vote on
and
them
then one's
separately, yes.
the affordable
Yeah,
housing
I'm glad you clarified that, because I was going to ask that be done. I fully support the third-party appeal rights being retained. I think that it's very important, particularly in an area along Sydney Road and in Brunswick where there is so many residents that live above Sydney Road. If you remember the debate around the Coburg amendments, we sort of said we'll remove the third-party appeal rights in the core, in the centre, where there is no neighbours currently, no existing residents, but would allow it everywhere where there are existing residents. Well, I think if you took the same approach, councillors, to Brunswick, there'll be no areas where you wouldn't allow it, because there are existing structures, existing residents in each and every parcel in this amendment. So that is a very important one to keep in there for that reason. And you're right, Brunswick does have a very high transient population, and they need to also have a say. So I fully support that one. In regards to affordable housing is obviously one of the biggest objectives of this council. However, I don't think it should be put into this amendment as an aspirational target, amendment by amendment. What we need is a city-wide policy for affordable housing. Affordable housing, we've put it into amendments before, and it's always been taken out by the minister. As we sit and debate it, it's almost a foregone conclusion that it will be taken out again. And even if it's left in, it's not mandatory, because what it needs is statewide legislation to make it mandatory. And we don't have that. So sure, we can leave a target in there, and we can say to the development community, here's your target. And they would probably say no. But I think the better approach, and the approach council needs to undertake, is to develop a policy citywide. And it's important that it is citywide, not specific in amendments, and take that to the minister. And I would be very supportive of having that work undertaken as soon as possible. I don't think that there is any point in putting it in this in this amendment. And I fear that if we do put it in, not only will it be automatically taken out, some of the other provisions might be taken out as well.
Thank you, Councillor Tapanos. Councillor Gillies.
I'm actually supporting the amendments, and there's a number of reasons. I think what Councillor Tapanos, sorry, Tapanos, I'll see you outside. I think what Councillor Tapanos says is probably true, but I think that we should actually stick to our guns on targets in terms of social housing. And interestingly enough, I was going to do a report on this, but evidently I can't. I've just got back from France, where local government there it legislates up to 25% for as a target for social housing. Developers don't expect the kinds of speculative developers do not expect the kinds of profit that they expect here. And that actually is across the board, even in major infrastructure buildings such as water supply plants. They just don't expect. And these are companies that also come here and then expect the sort of profits that we expect here, like Veolia and so on. But the reality is that if they do not meet that 25, if they don't meet the 25% target, they're fined, and that money then goes into speculative housing. So there are things that I think, it opens up a whole big discussion that's separate to this. But what I'm saying is that if we have this target, we should be actually trying to implement wherever we can, and it should not just be, something that we pretend to support and take out because we think it might, then bring other bits and pieces into jeopardy, because I think that we have to stick to our guns. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Gillies. Is there any further debate on this amendment?
Amendments.
No, the amendments. If not, I'll put it to the vote. We'll first take the first one, which is in relation to the retention of third-party notice and appeal rights. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried. We'll then take the second point, which is in relation to affordable housing. All those in favour? 6. All those against? I declare that carried. We'll now move to the substantive motion.
Division on that vote, please.
Certainly, division has been called. All those who voted in favour of the affordable housing provisions, please raise your hands. All those against? Thank you. Yes.
Can I just, before we put it to vote, have it noted
We've
in
already
the minutes?
voted.
Oh, sorry, before we put the substantive in the vote, have it also noted in the minutes that the reason that I am against
No, you can't, Councillor Tapanos. The debate has already concluded. Have you already spoken to the substantive motion?
Yeah.
You moved the substantive motion. Well, when you close the debate on the substantive motion, you might like to include some discussion about why you are opposed to affordable housing provisions.
Can I move it be put?
Councillor Rob Thompson has moved that it be put. I will take Councillor Rob Thompson's procedural motion. All those in favour of the motion being put?
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All those against? The motion shall be put. We now put the substantive motion C134. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried unanimously. We will never know why Councillor Tapanos doesn't support affordable housing.
Mayor, there was a question that was missed from the residents in the gallery earlier.
Oh, well.
And probably, can I pass up the gentleman's name?
Certainly.
To check if the question has been received?
Okay.
So we can get an answer to his questions. There should be a form.
Well, they'll now all have to be referred to a written response.
But just if, I'll need to get the address as well.
Well, we have contact details on the question time forms.
It was just to make sure the form hasn't been lost.
Oh, okay.
Actually, do you want to write down your address as well?
We'll have a look. Okay, we're going to find it. I've still got some more over here though, Narina. What was that? They can wait.
Okay.
We'll move on. DED 6015, Amendment C157, Gaming, Licensed Venues and Student Accommodation. Moved Councillor Tapanos, seconded Councillor Rob Thompson. Is there any debate?
Just very briefly.
Yes,
I'd just like to commend this amendment, which complements a number of the other structured plan work that we've been doing. Also to note that in the final exhibition, we actually received no objection or feedback, which we're taking as consent to it. We're reading that positively. I particularly want to commend the gaming provisions within this amendment. When council lost the ability to differentially rate gambling venues, it significantly dented our ability to control gambling in our community, which comes at a huge cost for our residents and community and broader social community outside Moreland as well. And we are a municipality that's grappling with this in very serious ways. This is one way that we can also manage that, or attempt to manage that, without the provisions of differential rates that we will still keep championing for. And I really commend the provisions that have been put in here about where gaming venues can actually be licensed and ensuring that they're not in areas where people who are most vulnerable for gambling addictions and falling ill in terms of these types of pursuits are placed. So I'm really supportive of the amendment. What's happening now?
Thank you, Councillor Ratnam. Is there any further debate on this item? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. Now, I will advise in relation to the question that wasn't put. The reasoning for that was that it came later in the pile to all of the other questions that I received in relation to the upfield bike path, and I had already taken 3 questions on that topic. So I chose not to return to it. I apologise for that. Had it been brought to my attention earlier in the meeting, we might have returned to it. But as it is, we do have all of your contact details, and so we will send you a response.
There was a second part about Faulkner Public Toilet as well.
I failed to notice the question about Faulkner Public Toilet, and I apologise. But we will send you a written response in regard to both of your questions. DED 6115, Amendment C158, and Draft Moreland Industrial Land Strategy, Revised Mills Category for the Walter Street Precinct, Hadfield.
I'm happy to move.
Yes, it's moved by Councillor Tapanos.
I'm happy to second.
Seconded Councillor Gildies. Councillor Tapanos.
I'm
No?
happy to reserve my right.
Is there any debate on this item? No? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those opposed? I declare that carried. DED 6215, Economic Development Strategy, Annual Report. Councillor Tapanos.
I move the recommendation on the said page.
Yes, is there a seconder? Seconded Councillor Gildies. Councillor Tapanos.
Yes, I will speak briefly to this because it demonstrates a lot of good work that's gone over, that's been done by a whole range of people, our business community, but most importantly, our wonderful staff in this area, and they've done a magnificent job. So I think it's important to say a few words around this strategy. The Economic Development Strategy was developed in at the beginning of the previous term, when we had a little bit of an economic sort of downturn in 2009, 2010. And as a council, we said, what could we do to assist our local traders, our shopping strip, and everyone in our community to build more jobs, but particularly to build more jobs locally. And we developed the Economic Development Strategy, and this is the annual report that we are receiving today. And it's been an overwhelming success story. It's been, firstly, a very positive thing to be able to see the state of the Moreland economy, and to see particularly the type of jobs that we have in our city and how that is changing over time. It's been very positive for our officers to be able to work with local businesses and develop and support business development, business retention, and also training programs. And overall, I can say that over the past 5 years of this strategy, we have been successful in increasing job growth in our city by 7%. And that is a very significant number. It's a very significant achievement, and this economic development strategy has contributed towards. So the number of businesses is up by 3.1%. There's been a lot of business-to-business interaction, and that's been up by about 3.9%. Gross regional product is up by 3.8%. We've developed excellent regional partnerships with our businesses and other support and businesses in the community. And we as a council have developed a whole range of business support networks, business support services such as programs events, training, and we've been able to bring a lot of people together in our community and facilitate discussions about how to improve your business and create job creation. So I will only mention a couple of other things that the policy touches on. The Brunswick Business Incubator has been a great success, and it envisages how it's going to continue to support it into the future and the role it plays in our community. And also Melbourne's Northern Investment and Innovation Fund and Moreland businesses have been able to, at least 2 Moreland companies have been able to receive substantial amounts of money. I think it's about $5.6 million for the creation of 90 new jobs in our city. So without the economic development strategy, without the work of our officers in bringing businesses together and the vision that the council had some years ago, we wouldn't be seeing this investment and these new jobs in our community. So I'm really pleased about this policy and really happy to see its successful outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Tapanos. Councillor Yildiz? No, is there any debate on this item? No, we're all very convinced. If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. DED 6315, Christmas Decorations Program 2015.
Can I move?
Oh, okay. Move Councillor Yildiz. I thought you like Christmas decorations.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry. Let
Okay.
Councillor Thompson move. He's quite passionate.
Oh, is he? All right.
I'll second.
Moved by Councillor Rob Thompson.
I'll second.
Thank you for being so generous, Councillor Yildiz. Seconded Councillor Yildiz. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Councillor Yildiz. I'll use my full 3 minutes to discuss Christmas decorations. I'm quite happy to see this report has invited both Councillor Tapanos, Christmas, and myself to discuss Christmas in future years. I'm glad to see that we're cutting back on some of our expenses this year as a last-ditch effort to not go overboard, and I hope that we can come back with a firm policy in future years with a little bit more direction, and perhaps that this won't continue to come to council every year and be debated at length as it is.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Yildiz? Okay. Yes, Councillor Davidson.
This isn't an amendment, but I note that a workshop's going to be held with Councillor Tapanos and Councillor Thompson on the 3rd of August. I'd like to request to be part of that, if that's acceptable. And there's a second part to my request, as I will be on leave during this time. If we could postpone it to the later part of August, if it's not time sensitive.
Time sensitive, we have international independent designers attending.
Yes, that's what I think a few people are saying. Perhaps the amendment could just say
I'm happy to go.
councillors invited.
I'm happy to represent you, Councillor Davidson.
Councillor
if I'm
Davidson
allowed.
feels very strongly about Christmas.
Christmas decorations.
Thank you. So I think we'll take the amendment as that all councillors be invited to attend the meeting, and that the committee be asked to postpone the meeting until a later date in August.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to the amendment? Seconded Councillor Kavanagh. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? All those opposed? Councillor Thompson is the Grinch who stole Councillor Davidson's Christmas. I'll declare that carried. And we'll now move to the substantive motion. Is there any further debate? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those opposed? I declare that carried unanimously. Notices of motion.
Can I ask that the urgent business item be considered now, given that we're still in councillor business?
Yes. So the urgent business item was for me to report back on a matter from the previous council meeting in which a councillor made a complaint about a comment that was put there by Councillor Tetty. So I'm just going to find my finding to that. Okay. So having reviewed the footage of the June council meeting, it is certainly the case that Councillor Tetty made the comment, "It must be age." At the time he did this, the video camera was not pointed at him, and so it is not possible to ascertain whether he was looking or gesturing in a certain direction. However, the assumption can be made based on the passage of the debate and on the fact that it was Councillor Kavanagh who was speaking at the time that Councillor Tetty's inference was in relation to Councillor Kavanagh. In reviewing my own comments following the intermission that took place, I note that in the first instance, I say I will call on Councillor Teddy to offer an apology. When he declines to do so, I refer to the local laws and the penalty that is in place for refusing to offer an apology if called upon twice to do so by the chair. I then ask, if you are called upon twice to offer an apology, would you change your view? In response to which Councillor Teddy indicates that he would not. In light of the wording used, it is clear that I did not call upon Councillor Teddy to apologise twice, and that under the local laws I am therefore not automatically required to fine him 5 penalty units. It is my opinion that Councillor Teddy's comments were not in good taste. It would have been my preference that he offer to withdraw the comment. That said, having thought over the many things that have been said by councillors in public debate over the past few years, it is my opinion that far worse things have been said by Moreland councillors without a reaction of 5 penalty units, which equates to a fine of $730. I acknowledge that in both of these examples the comments were withdrawn, but once said comments of this nature are in the public sphere, and in reality withdrawing them does little to placate the individual to whom offence has been caused. In this instance, I believe that such a fine would be disproportionate to the incident that occurred. As such, my response to this incident will be to write to Councillor Teddy, pointing out the inappropriateness of his comments and issuing him with a warning. I will strongly urge him to consider his behaviour toward his fellow councillors in the chamber in future, and will ask him to reconsider his decision not to withdraw his comments. As he will have been formally warned in this letter, future behaviours such as this in the chamber will be more likely to warrant a fine under the local laws. This is my determination as chair, but if any councillor does not find this to be a sufficient response, they are of course aware of their ability to pursue the matter further under the Code of Conduct.
I'd like to rise to move a motion of dissent in the chairperson's ruling.
Councillor Ratnam has moved a motion of dissent. Is there a seconder? Seconded Councillor Lenker-Thompson. Councillor Ratnam.
I think the chair has to be moved. The chair has to be passed over while this is discussed.
Okay. In that case, I'll vacate the chair and pass it to Councillor Davidson as the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ratnam, do you wish to speak?
So the reason I'm moving a motion of dissent is I'm very unsatisfied with the chairperson's ruling on this matter. This matter occurred in the context of, as we have been talking about tonight, years of questionable conduct issues, which a number of us have been trying to take action on. I think it's really important this council has some standards and that it adheres to them. And to adhere to standards, you've got to have consequences for actions and behaviour. We have a councillor code of conduct so that if it is breached, there are clear consequences of what will happen. If we continuously have breaches and have no consequence, it basically says we have a licence not to adhere to the councillor code of conduct. And we have just seen this chamber disintegrate into really distasteful debate at times because the minimum standard hasn't been set. And one of the reasons I made the complaint at the last council meeting was that I really felt like it crossed the line. I think ageist comments that are personally denigrating to a councillor are absolutely not appropriate, and we should have consequences. And I believe the mayor in this instance should use the power that she has. While she might not automatically have to issue a fine, the fine provision is there for that reason. And I'll also note that in terms of our local laws, there were actually several breaches of the local laws. That was failing to obey the instructions of the chair, failing to withdraw a comment. There was a third one which is not just coming up on my screen at the moment, but I believe that he actually undermined at least 3 provisions in that local law, and I can't believe that there is no consequence apart from a warning letter, which we have tried before and has no consequence.
Thank you, Councillor Ratnam. Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, I'd like to speak in favour of the motion presented by Councillor Ratnam and agree that a warning letter isn't really sufficient to the actions that were undertaken by Councillor Teddy. Though I wasn't present at the council itself last month, I did see it online, so I was able to view it subsequent to that. And just in terms of some of the background information that the mayor provided with us just then, it's the questions about if she knew that there could be a removal or there could be a repercussion of why he wasn't asked to apologise twice, why she didn't ask for that apology to happen if she thought it was a comment that was sort of disrespectful to another councillor. And I guess in terms of relating it back to other previous incidences that have happened in the council chamber and how the comparison between this one and those are different, or that this one is not as severe as those. I think that's kind of predicated on a false argument, because I believe this is the time when we can really show some leadership and really, set the standard or set the precedent that no ageist comments or no form of racism or sexism is allowed in this chamber. And as Councillor Ratnam said, issuing a letter of warning, I just feel has no impact on Councillor Teddy, as we have noted in previous times when we've tried to contact him and sort of deal with him in that letter form. So I believe that there needs to be a much harsher penalty in this instance, and I think we should review what the Mayor has come back to us as her response to this ageist comment.
Councillor Gillies?
I'm actually going to support the Mayor's findings, and I'll do so based on a very simple pretext, and that is that it's giving her leeway to make the decision. And we are actually governed by the Local Government Act. The point is that a particular councillor has actually called a resident an F-wit in a meeting, in a council meeting, publicly, and retracted it straight away. I'm not sure, I can't remember an actual apology, I remember the retraction of the comment. But because under the Local Government Act they can retract the comment, that's supposed to be okay. Well, I actually don't think that resident even felt like that at all. There was no further action taken, because under the Local Government Act, if he retracted it, that was fine. Or under our local laws, sorry. I think that that the Mayor being able to show leadership with sending a letter in this instance is fine, because I think that the comment is inappropriate, but I think that there have been other comments that have made that have been inappropriate, and we haven't had action. So to suddenly say that we have to do it with Councillor Tetty is just, I think, using an opportunity, being opportunist.
Thank you, Councillor Gillies. Councillor Yildiz?
Can I just make this comment? We elect the Mayor in a position to make decisions. I think Megan's a very good leader. I'm not just saying that. Don't need your vote, Megan. I'm saying it because, with all honesty, I think you've been very, very good as Mayor. We elected you in this position. At the end of the day, I'm not defending the councillor who made the comment. I'm not going into who made it, who wasn't. I was actually at the meeting, unlike some others, so I'm not going to make comment, even though I was here, about that issue and what was said and what wasn't said. But the most important thing here is we've got an elected representative who's representing all of us. And she's made the decision to do what she has. She's spoken to the councillor about his behaviour. She has requested an apology, hasn't come, but then she's made a decision. And mind you, I do know for a fact that she's lost a lot of sleep over this, and it's stressed her out to an extent where she's been quite unwell because of all the stress created by this. So I don't think it's fair to ask for dissent and then question the mayor of a city who you elected, or we elected, whether you voted for her or not, it doesn't matter. We elected her, she represents us. This is the problem with this council. We question people that we elect into positions in front of the public and embarrass ourselves even more and more. She made the decision, that's it, get on with it. Why are we arguing? Why are we even here arguing about this? Again, it's not about Councillor Teddy, it's not about the other councillor. This is about moving on and accepting the fact that you've made that decision. And I find it quite abhorrent that we would even question and ask for a dissent for someone who's in this position, especially when it's being recorded as well.
Councillor Yildiz, thank you. Councillor Bolton?
I'll support the dissent in the chair, but with sort of qualifications. I mean, I do feel that Councillor Teddy's behaviour in that particular meeting, with muttering while Councillor Kavanagh was speaking was disrespectful in terms of the council debating out its business. However, I do feel that Councillor Kavanagh contributed a little bit to the situation, and there was a bit of a shouting match between the two councillors. So I mean, I don't think it is entirely Councillor Teddy's fault, but I think he did actually undermine, like the sort of general muttering throughout that particular debate did play a role in sort of undermining our decision making. So I'm supporting the motion of dissent.
Councillor Bolton, that's happened this meeting.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but I do have some concerns about other behaviour by other councillors as well, including yelling at residents in council meetings.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is there any supporting the dissent? Is there any further debate on this? No.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Councillor.
I've never been involved in a dissent of the Mayor, so can someone explain to me exactly what that means if that was passed?
I'll pass that to the CEO. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor, it is an unusual situation. We're not well practiced in such things. So we've been having a look at what the local law says about dissent. Basically, if that motion is passed, it's noted that there was dissent in the chair. I have not found anything that gives me a sense of that forces a change in any decision or any of those sorts of things. However, it notes that Council's resolution was dissent in the Mayor's or dissent in the Chair's decision.
Can I just ask a follow-up question? Does that simply mean that you're disagreeing with the Mayor on that decision? Is that all it's saying?
Well, yeah, dissenting in the Chair's ruling. So the Chair has ruled, and this
you're not viewing,
Council...
it's not any more than that. It's not any sort of no confidence or anything of that nature, is it?
It doesn't carry anything further. It is simply noting dissent in this particular ruling.
Thank you for that clarification. I'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour of the chairperson's ruling?
Motion of dissent.
The motion of dissent? All those against? I declare that carried. And I'll pass the chair back to the Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Davidson.
Foreshadow a motion.
There was no further motion, so it was urgent business item, but it wasn't a motion, so the matter's now been put, so we'll return to the remainder of the agenda. Notice of motion 3315, Green Left Weekly fundraising event. Moved Councillor Gillies.
Yes. So
I'll just get a seconder and then I'll let you speak
sorry,
to it.
always
Seconded
do that.
Councillor Gillies. Councillor Gillies.
I move it be put. Seriously, we can agree with it.
thanks.
Councillor, I do have to take the procedural that it be put. So Councillor Thompson has proposed that it be put. All those in favour? All those against?
Putting the motion.
Councillor Tapanos, do you have a vote? I declare that lost. Councillor Gillies.
He didn't know what he was voting on.
Thank you. The motion is that Council waive the hall hire fee as well as waiving the security guard requirement for the hire of Brunswick Town Hall on 24 July 2015 by Green Left Weekly's annual comedy event. And the background is that Green Left Weekly newspaper holds a fundraising event every year. The events become an institution in Moreland and particularly at the Brunswick Town Hall, and well-known comedian Rod Quantock is MC, as well as local Indigenous and other comedians. Many of the newspaper's supporters live in the Moreland area, and organisers of the event have publicised the event locally, including through local newspapers since 2009. Various councils have agreed to sponsor the event, and a fee waiver has been agreed to since that time. Green Left Weekly provides a much-needed forum for discussion and debate on current affairs. That's an alternative to the Murdoch media. The paper has always maintained a progressive voice to a wide range of ideas across the progressive political spectrum. It has successfully linked issues and campaigns to widen the opportunity for people to get involved in the democratic process and contributing to upholding the democratic principles which form the basis of the Australian society. Green Left Weekly has acknowledged through me, basically, the generous discounts that the event has received from Council in previous years, and hope that the Council will continue to recognise the important role that Green Left Weekly plays in relation to cultural development, social justice issues in the Moreland region. They hope that our Council will continue to support the event. Green Left Weekly is a non-profit newspaper, relying solely on its supporters for funding. All proceeds from the event will be contributed to the production of the paper. The role of Green Left Weekly is similar to the role of community radio stations and is one of the few media voices to give voice to opinions not currently given air in mainstream media. Green Left Weekly is seeking that Council's requirement for security guards be withdrawn for this event based upon the fact that historically there have never been any incidents of rowdy, unruly or aggressive behaviour in the 13 years this event has taken place. The focus of the night is the comedy, and although alcohol has always been served at the event, the demographic attracted to this event have never overindulged in alcohol, as it's not the main focus of the event. In a compromise that seeks to meet part of Council's requirement, Green Left Weekly have proposed that they would appoint 3 marshals from their membership base to be responsible for overseeing the event in place of paid security guards. Let me just add to that. At political rallies, they basically appoint marshals from whatever membership base. It could be the union membership or, could be any particular membership, and they usually have a discussion beforehand. They're told what to look out for. They will normally wear something that separates them from other people, like fluoro vest or whatever. But even at rallies, there's usually very little trouble. At the ones I've been to, anyway. So that's what they're proposing, and the policy context is actually in the report. The waive of the hall hire and is $500 bond that would be paid back, and $1,650 for the hall hire. And the cost of crowd controllers would be $900. So it's actually a fair bit of money all up for an organisation that's really running on the smell of an oil rag. So I'd just like to support that we support them.
Thank you, Councillor Gilly. Is there further debate on this proposal? Councillor Kavanagh.
I'm going to speak against the motion. I'm actually quite in favour of the waiver of the security guard because I do think that is excessive. But I think that a little bit like what I was saying in another report, I think this group has been given support previously, and I think it is almost at the point of being discriminatory to continue to support one political voice and not support others. So I'd be in favour of the security guard waiver, but not in the favour of the town hall hire 3.
Thank you, Councillor Kavanagh. Councillor Tapanos. No? Is there a speaker in favour before I take Councillor Tapanos?
Can I just ask, have other groups who publish media of some description, whether it be left-wing or right-wing, have they asked for support for hire of town halls or...?
To the Director of Corporate Services.
Through the Councillor. Through the Mayor. I'm not aware of that. I need to take it on notice. I should just point out that the reason why the officers don't, under policy, waive the fees because the policy says there's to be no discount to political organisations. So if there was another political organisation that was asked, they too would be denied the waiver. It would need to come to council so that council can make that decision.
Thank you.
Can I move an amendment?
Yes, an amendment from Councillor Thompson.
Could I separate the security from the hall hire?
Okay, so Councillor Thompson has moved an amendment to separate the 2 items. Is there a seconder? Seconded Councillor Kavanagh. All those in favour of the amendment?
Hang on.
Separating the amendments.
Yes, well, the amendment is to separate the motion.
It doesn't need...
It's not an amendment, it's a
It's not an
procedural.
amendment. It's a procedure. It doesn't need to be put.
Yeah, it's a procedural.
Anyone can request it, the chair can grant it.
Okay, well, in that case, I grant it. Is there any further speakers in favour of the motion? Councillor Bolton.
Has she spoken?
No, Councillor Gillies moved the motion. Councillor Bolton hasn't spoken at this time.
Yeah. No, I'd like to support the proposal. I think especially the security guard requirement is in particular very onerous, and not just for Green Left Weekly, for a wide range of community groups, because this is, 2 security guards for 100 people and 1 extra security guard for each 100 after that. And I remember when Climate Action Moreland had its public meeting here, and they were required to have security guards, the security guards were just bored out of their brains waiting for something to happen that they could act on. And, you know, I mean, the same would happen at a Green Left Weekly function and a number of other things where groups are forced to have security guards. Now, I can imagine if it's a full-on party or whatever, maybe, you know, like maybe it might be different, but it's not that sort of an event. And certainly the organisers would want to make sure that nothing actually, you know, there's no aggression or, you know, over serving of alcohol or any kind of thing like that. So the organisers would be monitoring the event. And with regard to the hall hire fee, I mean, I think a range of different organisations do approach council to get assistance with hall hire. I mean, this is a publication that represents a very broad range of views. Yes, it's true. It's on the progressive and left end of the spectrum, but within that, it is not a narrow publication. It's covered a very wide range of viewpoints, and including a lot of community campaigns that never get reflected in the mainstream media. And in that sense, it is very like community radio 3CR and some of the other community radios which exist. So that's the reason why I'm supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is there any further debate on this item? Councillor Tapanos, you wish to speak against? Or I'll take Councillor Rob Thompson as he's on his feet.
I'm happy to have them separated. The security guards is somewhat of an issue. Recently at a kinder function we were indicated to have security guards, which we did have and paid for. But the hall hire fee is something that needs to be acknowledged. This is a political organisation. We have policy in place that, you know, political organisations must pay a hall hire fee. And there just sort of seems to be no debate over that particular point as far as I'm concerned. The security one I can understand, and yes, based on the performance of the Left Green Weekly fundraiser in the past, there's been no issues, and I'm happy to waive that.
Thank you. Is there a speaker in favour before I take Councillor Tapanos's? You'll be closing the debate. Look, I'll take Councillor Tapanos's contribution again.
I'm speaking against both. Make no mistake, what we are doing here is almost setting precedents against a particular policy. I've always wondered and questioned this policy, I must say. What is political and what is not? But if we were to enable a free hire now for Socialist Alliance, Social Green Left Weekly, what we are doing is basically saying we could have political meetings, and any political party with its magazine, with its publication, can come and get a waiver of our policy. So if that is the way council wants to go, then it should do it with a proper review of that policy. I might have different opinions at that stage. But at the moment, it must be consistent and say, this is the magazine of a political party. It is a magazine. I know that, yes, they're independent, they were established by members of the political party. Well, you know, the Labor Herald, which is a magazine of the Labor Party, it's also, in a way, independent with its own editors. And the Greens probably have a similar magazine, and the Liberal Party has a similar magazine, and what have you. The fact is, members of Socialist Alliance are exclusively the people writing for it. Yes. I'm not sure of any councillor bar one around this table who has had a call from the magazine to ask for an interview, and we all know the political affiliations of that councillor. And quite frankly, I don't really like the magazine. As I've mentioned, I've purchased it once. I think it is predominantly misleading. It is full of propaganda. In fact, only propaganda, I would go as far as to say. There is absolutely no element of news in it whatsoever. Why anyone buys it, I do not know. So, in all seriousness, councillors, I'm deadly serious when I say that. And we've seen quite often in this chamber things that I think have just been entirely copied and pasted from Green Left Weekly. So we've all had a taste of the types of things that are in the magazine. And secondly, so I don't support the waiver. And secondly, about the security. I mean, it's easy to say that there probably won't be a problem. And there probably won't be. Most likely there won't be. and the security will be bored. That's what happens in most instances. But what happens if there is? I mean, we must assess these things based on risk. And this function in particular includes alcohol. And that elevates the risk dramatically, in my view. When people are intoxicated, they might be nice people normally, but when people are intoxicated, they act very, very differently. So it does elevate risk. And I could tell you, I don't think that everyone going there is going to be peaceful. I could tell you because I've gone to rallies and I've been pushed and I've been shoved and I've even been punched in the face by a member of Socialist Alternative. So I think they are quite violent in many ways. And I think that when you have a look at some of the footage that is portrayed in Australian TV of rallies, and you must agree that there is a little bit of pushing and shoving and so forth. So I don't think you could say this is going to be a peaceful rally. We're just going to debate policy. This could get quite violent. And that's why we have security. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tapanos. We will all note that Green Left Weekly is not to Councillor Tapanos's taste.
His comments about rallies.
Good, Councillor Gillies. Okay, I'll note this is not a rally that we are talking about here. This is a meeting of a newspaper.
Please let
Councillor
me close
Gillies.
the debate. All I want to say is I love you, Councillor Tapanos, but sometimes I want to punch you in the face. So the point is, that at the end of the day, this is not socialist alliance. This is not one particular. And look, I can tell you're in the right of the Labor Party because you don't know the nuances of the left. It may be semantics, but it's very important. They do actually represent a large spectrum of the left. And I thought that they were also very friendly with the Greens, but Sam told me the other night, or Councillor Ratnam told me the other night that they weren't. But the point is that I think it still is a different voice. It is not a political party. It certainly does actually, like the Murdoch media, and this is, I can't believe that you were describing Green Left Weekly when we all read The Age and the Herald Sun every day. The point is that it does give an alternative view. It is a comedy, it's almost like an annual comedy festival to raise money. And I actually think that you're going a bit over the top in terms of, I don't know who punched you in the face at a rally. It's not funny. It's not funny. But the point is that you cannot use your personal experience and think that everything is going to be like that. They have said that they will have 3 marshals working on the day. And quite frankly, if we're going to be honest about security versus marshals, I'd prefer people that can, sort of behave in ways and aren't necessarily going to get themselves into situations where they could hurt another person because they're bored. So, and I shouldn't say that but I have seen that happen. So, I would just like to support the motion. I've agreed for it to be, we've all voted, it's going to be separate, and let's just have the vote. Okay?
Thank you, Councillor Gillies. We'll take first the matter of whether to waive security. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. We'll take secondly the matter of whether to waive the hall hire fee. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that lost. We'll now turn to Notice of Motion 3415, Cycling Safety in Ararat Avenue, Coburg. It's moved by Councillor Bolton. Is there a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded Councillor Gillies. Councillor Bolton, did you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I do. The motion is that Council resolve to install appropriate signage on Ararat Avenue, Coburg North, to make motorists aware that the street is an on-road part of the upfill bike path. And secondly, that Council receive a report outlining options for improving cyclist safety on Ararat Avenue.
You have a seconder. So
I've got a seconder?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. In public question time, 2 residents explained some of the issues on Ararat Street. This Ararat Avenue, this is a very short street, very, very short street. And the angle at which the upfill bike path comes onto the street from the north is not directly, it's sort of at a sort of angle, which means that, say if you were a cyclist who hadn't used the path before, was cycling from the north, you would very easily just cycle straight onto the road without realising that it was actual public roadway and not just part of the bike path. And also, when I visited the area, I happened to drive up Shorts Road to turn left into Ararat Avenue, and a cyclist was coming down. And for drivers coming up from that direction, it's not obvious that you're about to hit cyclists, basically. It's a very dangerous intersection between the cyclists and cars, and there's no signage, or not that I noticed, to indicate that there's going to be an intermingling of cyclists and cars. Now, I gather council staff have been out there before and looked at the question of widening or putting a section of the upfill bike path along beside the road, but that would have necessitated removing the trees, and the residents don't want the trees to be removed. So certainly I think the urgent thing is the signage on the street, and possibly even a road sign. Now, I don't know if that's something which council can do, or whether that's something that's a Vic Roads issue, but certainly at the very least the painting of signs on the street, and some sort of measures to make it very visible that that cyclists this is part of the upfield bike path, even though it is a road. And secondly, that the critical thing is to have a look at more options in terms of improving cyclist safety, and I think particularly for where the path comes on to Ararat Avenue, I think in particular, because maybe there's a way of reconfiguring it without the removal of trees in that particular part.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is there any further debate on this item? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. Notice of motion 3515, letter in support of Moreland Community Solar.
Okay, well, this motion is simply for council.
I'll take it as moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Yildiz. Councillor Bolton.
Okay, alrighty. So basically, last year, I think it was, the council voted to assist Moreland Community Solar to get up and running when they were sort of hit a bit of a snag, and they've been receiving support through the Moreland Energy Foundation and from council staff. Now, the group is up and running, but then they've hit a further snag. They've been working in conjunction with a bit of a network of community solar organisations, certainly I think from Yarra, and there are several other council areas have community solar projects. What they've run up against is legislation which demands that community solar projects like this have to be licensed in the way that major energy operators such as Origin Energy have to be licensed. And this is extremely onerous, because it's sort of treating them as if they're some major energy company, electricity company, when that's not the idea of these small community solar projects, which are looking at trying to really increase people's access to solar energy and to reduce power bills in the municipality, including for people who rent and not just homeowners. There has been a meeting with the minister, and I believe the government, as a result of this meeting, is considering a review, but of course there's no guarantee what outcome there will be for the review. So this motion is simply calling on council to write a letter to the state government to grant an exemption to community energy groups from being forced to obtain a costly licence to generate, distribute and retail electricity, and also to establish a fund to kickstart community solar projects in Victoria. Now, it needs to be noted that in New South Wales and Queensland, there's no such obstacles to community solar projects. There's no requirement for licensing.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is there further debate on this item? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those opposed? I declare that carried. Notice of motion 3615, Hiroshima Day. Councillor Bolton.
So this is.
I'll take a seconder. Is there
Sorry.
Seconded Councillor Gillies. Councillor Bolton.
Okay, so my motion is to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the use of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki by holding a minute's silence at the council meeting on the 12th of August 2015, and to invite a representative of the Japanese for Peace. There's a representative who's a local resident of Moreland, has been for many years, Coburg, to briefly address council and to use social media and other council communications to highlight this anniversary and what it commemorates. This is, I believe, this is a very significant event which we need to commemorate. We've already had a period of commemorating Anzac Day in Moreland and across the country. Hiroshima Day and Nagasaki Day, which happened a few days later, focuses on the plight of civilians in war. These two atomic bombs dropped on Japan in 1945 immediately killed over 120,000 civilians in Hiroshima on 6th of August 1945 and Nagasaki on 9th of August 1945. In Hiroshima, around 80,000 civilians were killed in a split second. 13 square kilometres of the city were obliterated, and by December at least another 70,000 people died from radiation and injuries. And many Australian soldiers who were part of the occupation force, who were part of the first group that went in to those cities and witnessed the destruction, were converted to becoming peace activists overnight when they saw the extent of the destruction. Since 1945, tens of thousands more residents of the two cities have continued to suffer and die from radiation-induced cancers, birth defects and stillbirths. These are the two worst terrorist attacks in human history, planned in secret with no explicit warnings to civilians. The attacks were designed to inflict the most extreme human carnage possible. 70 years after the war, thousands of people in both cities still suffer from the trauma and devastating after effects of radiation. And it must be noted that the Second World War was the first war in human history, where non-combatant casualties exceeded those of serving soldiers. To prevent any repetition of the use of atomic bombs, the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki have continually sought to remind the world of the inhuman cruelty of nuclear weapons and have consistently urged the abolition of such weapons. Now, Brunswick Council was one of the first signatories of Mayors for Peace, which was initiated by the Hiroshima Mayor Araki in 1982. And really, there's a lot more that the Australian federal government could do in terms of advancing the cause of nuclear disarmament, the true horrors of these weapons. So I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is there any further debate on this item? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. Notice of motion 37...
that it was unanimous?
Oh, yes, it will be recorded that the vote was unanimous. Notice of motion 3715, Council support for a visit to Kathmandu and Kuala Lumpur. Somebody move? Move Councillor Gillies. Yes. Seconded Councillor...
Yes, sorry.
Seconded Councillor Gildies. Councillor Gildies, did you wish to speak to it?
Can I just move the motion?
Yes, you can.
That'd be great.
It's
yes.
moved. It is
well,
so
I
moved.
know, but I'm just going to read it out
You
very
don't need
quickly.
Oh, you don't have to.
I don't know. Great. Well, that's fine. Because I feel like the mover of motions tonight. So,
Good on.
Is there any
People
debate
watching
on this
don't
item?
necessarily know
Yes.
what's in.
oh, well, that's true. Maybe
People
I
watching
will.
don't necessarily know
Okay.
what's in the motion.
So, apologies to those who aren't in the room. Motion is, number one, that the city of Latapur be identified as Council's preferred location for a sister-city relationship in Kathmandu, Nepal. 2, to allocate up to $2,500 to enable Mayor Hopper to visit Kathmandu in order to finalise sister-city relationship discussions, participate in discussions regarding the transition to elected local government in Nepal, and contribute to and learn about recent disaster relief measures donated to Nepal by Moreland City Council in that particular country, and to visit Kuala Lumpur in order to attend and speak at the Future Cities Asia Conference. 3, that a report from Council Hub will be tabled at Council within 2 months of the visit.
Speaker against? Councillor Kavanagh.
You want to speak against? I actually think this is the type of thing that ratepayers do get very upset about, and I think rightfully so. I don't think that the Mayor should be going on an overseas trip funded by Council for whatever purpose, for even with these purposes in mind. I do believe that this is a misuse of ratepayers' money, and I'll be voting that way.
Is there a speaker in favour? No speaker against? Councillor Ratnam.
I too would like to speak against this motion. I agree that I don't think it's an appropriate use of ratepayers' money, especially in this environment that we're entering with less and less resources for which to invest in community resources. I note that we made a generous donation of $10,000 recently to the Nepal earthquake. If we're going to then spend $2,500, so a quarter of it, or a quarter of the amount that we're donating for an overseas trip, I don't feel like it's actually a fair sort of proposition, and I would rather donate the money than have an overseas trip paying for it, or to be paid for, used for an overseas trip. I note that in previous sister city relationship formation, we haven't had to send councillors overseas. We've been able to form those sister city relationships in multiple ways, especially in this age of technology, that we have other new avenues by which to create this relationship. This is one of many sister city relationships that we have in Moreland, which I'm very supportive of. I think it, enhances our sort of global participation and our global citizenry. However, I think we've got to be really conscious about where our resources are going, and I think this is open to a perception that councillors are using ratepayers' money for overseas jaunts, and I think it is a really, really bad direction for council to pursue.
Thank you, Councillor Ratnam. Councillor Yildiz.
Can I just ask, just for a point of clarification, how long will you be over there for?
It's 5 days.
5 days. So 5 days, $2,500, that will probably get you there and back by plane. So I'm sure you're going to be spending some of your own money and your own funds while you're there, accommodation, transport, everything else. Again, this is yet again a council that turns over $150 million. We're questioning $2,500 for the leader of this council to go overseas to basically have a look at the $10,000 that we spent and where it was allocated. Great transparency. We're actually sending someone over there, the mayor of a city, to potentially enter into a sister city relationship with a country that's still in mourning. But the fact that we're questioning $2,500. We gave $10,000 before, we gave $80,000 to that, we give, a couple $100,000 to this, but we're questioning the mayor of a city. This would happen in no country in the world. Happens in Moreland. I'm embarrassed. Please keep writing, Mr. Journalist. It's embarrassing. Totally embarrassing.
I'll speak against if I could. As you know, I'm not a supporter of junkets. We didn't send people to Adelaide. I don't like sending people to Canberra or as many people as we do. $2,500, whilst it is an insignificant number compared to the $168 million that we're spending on the budget this year, is still $2,500. And yes, it does pale into comparison, or makes the $10,000 donation that we gave after the earthquake seem insignificant if a quarter of that is now being spent on airfares. I'm not a supporter of this. I don't believe that we need to do this. If the sister city wishes to benefit from being our sister city, I think it would be better that we broker negotiations from afar and contribute further funds to them, or at least invite their people to join us when they're in national travels. But I don't think we need to be sending anyone across to visit.
You've already spoken, Councillor Yildiz.
I just want to say I'm happy to contribute my salary from a week to your.
It's fine, Councillor Yildiz. I'm not. Is there any further debate on this item?
Can I just close it?
Councillor Linker Thompson.
I'd just like to speak as well.
Oh yes, let's have 4 speakers against and 1 in favour.
Yeah, not supporting this notice of motion, and
It's
just
not
to
meeting
reiterate
procedure.
what has been said before.
Don't shush me, Councillor Ratnam. That's a warning.
I agree.
Meeting procedure is not to take 4 speakers against and 1 in favour, so I will not hear you on this matter.
No, that's not fair. She was already
Yes,
on
it
her
is.
feet.
Well, too bad.
She was already on
No,
her feet.
I'm not taking people
I'll
shushing the
speak in
mayor.
favour.
Councillor Tapanos.
And that will enable more speakers. Councillors, We do have a number of sister city relationships. And I do know that the motion today is to establish another. And that is one that I support. And I support it for particularly because the Nepalese community is one that has significant numbers in our city, particularly in Brunswick, where I believe it might be the highest proportion in Victoria of people from a Nepali-speaking background. Of course, that includes Nepal, but also Bhutan. So I do support that. I do note that Latipur district is an area in the sort of in the valley there, just north of Kathmandu, and it's one that is, I guess, north of a big capital city. And in a sense, I think that it is a good selection. That it's not Kathmandu itself, since that is the capital, and it would be more appropriate that capital cities have those, but this is a suburb or a region of a city as we are in Moreland. So I just wanted to clarify that. Now, in regards to costs associated, when councils commit to sister city relationships, they need to do so not just by words, but also putting some money behind it. Some time ago, we had $15,000 allocated per year in our budget for sister city relationships. Now, I don't think a lot of that money is spent. I don't think it's been spent for many, many years. In addition to that, all councillors get an allocation for travel and conferences, and I don't think that budget is spent. And I must remind the chamber that we are also sending the mayor to speak at a very important forum in Kuala Lumpur as well, which perhaps has been a little bit not focused on because the focus has been Kathmandu. So I do think there is money in the budget. I think there's money being allocated. If we are going to progress, I would hope that we don't only occasionally send representatives to Nepal, but we also invite them to come and visit our city and perhaps even fund a contribution of their stay, considering that they are not a wealthy country. So, councillors, I do think that if we are going to get into them, they do cost. Otherwise, there's no point in them being just on paper. So, and part of that is developing contacts, people-to-people exchange and relationships are important. And I think that this is one of those costs.
Thank you, Councillor Tapanos. I've allowed 3 speakers against and 2 in favour, so I'll allow Councillor Gillies to close the debate.
And I would like to acknowledge that Councillor Ratnam and Councillor Kavanagh talked all the way through debate earlier this meeting, so it is true. It actually is true, and we can look back on the footage. But anyway, so look, from my perspective, we're not just talking about going to Nepal. We're also talking about Future Cities Asia Conference, which is really important. And the mayor will actually be our representative, and she's been asked to speak. I mean, I've just come back from France, where they have, a huge budget for international relations. They allowed me to sit in on URBAC. We've been invited as a council to go to their sister cities pre-climate summit conference, where they develop their ideas on what they're going to put forward at the climate change summit in Paris. We've been invited to all these things, and I sit around this table after sitting in on different EU programs that encourage sister city actual participation in work programs so that they get the very best ideas and are able to implement those ideas and then actually help create the regulative kind of legislation that is working across the world, not just across, their own country. And I sit here and I listen to people talking about, why would you go to a sister city to finalise, the sister city relationship? We have, to be honest, if I was, we've been asked by 3 separate cities in France to have different kinds of partnership programs. They believe in partnership programs, you actually do things. It is exchange of ideas that results in something. They don't want to just come and fluff around and have an afternoon tea every now and then. You actually work for what you're doing and you achieve a particular goal. I'm sitting here listening to this and I cannot believe, because their attitude is so different, and our attitude is, ratepayers wouldn't like that. Well, you know what? Their arts budget and culture budget is like $40 million, And if they cut that, there would be riots in the street. The point is they want a well-rounded society. They believe in education. They believe in all these things. We've got a mayor who's been invited to speak at an important conference that's, you know, in Asia, and we're quibbling over $2,500. And I think that's a bit disgusting, actually, because I actually think that we've been asked to do something and provide expertise in probably a forum where, you know, we've got as much to learn as they have from us. So I actually think that people need to
Councillor Ratner, you had the opportunity to put your argument. Councillor Gillies.
Again. So, you know, I think that it would be really good if we reconsider how we're seeing this. It's not just going to Nepal, she's going to a conference. And I think that it's really important that we understand that she will be our representative and Moreland will be represented. And that is an important thing in itself.
Thank you, Councillor Gillies. Yes?
Is there a possibility to separate the two?
Because I would only be in Kuala Lumpur for one day, I don't think it's worthy of the cost just to send me to one city. So my intention was to combine the two in order to finalise the Nepalese relationship while speaking as an environmental leader. So I don't think I wouldn't be willing to spend council resources on just going to Kuala Lumpur without adding Nepal onto it, because it's only a one-day conference. So.
And one other question.
Yes.
The 2,500, is that the cost of the airfare?
I based that on Council's resolution last year, where we approved to send Councillor Tapanos to East Timor as part of that sister city relationship. So I was basing it on past precedent. It's less than total cost of the airfare, accommodation and other associated costs while I'm there, but I didn't want to request more than what has been standard.
Can I just ask you if you have the estimate of what the total cost of the trip would be?
Yes, it's included. It was included in the background, I think, or it may not have been. The flights were approximately $1,500. The accommodation is somewhere in the vicinity of $70 to $100 a night, and then there's associated costs around getting around Kathmandu and.
Just a point of order I feel I must make. The resolution last year was $3,000, so it might be appropriate for that to be bumped up if that was the basis in which it was determined.
Do we move it amend?
It's no amendment.
Facts.
Thank you, Councillor Tapanos. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I'm not going to use my casting vote for my own purposes, and so I will declare the motion lost.
Can I call for a division, please?
Division has been called. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands. I'm not going to use my casting vote for that.
And that's very honourable.
All those against? And lost on the casting vote of the Mayor. General business. I'll move around the table. Councillor Bolton, any general business items?
Oh, just one very important one, which I've got the piece of paper. This is regarding Webb Street, North Coburg. I had it printed out. Basically, Industry Heights. Anyway, I've just mislaid the piece of paper. Okay, could it be brought up on the screen, the Webb Street, North Coburg? Sorry, I just did have it printed out, but it's got lost in amongst the piece of papers. Yeah, this is it. Yeah, thanks. Okay, oh, thank you. It's coming up on screen. Oh, actually, no, read it. That's the background. So basically, the motion is simply that council receive a report recommending solutions to the parking issues in Webb Street, Coburg North, including the habitual parking of unregistered vehicles and vehicles which are requiring of mechanical work from the businesses and the buying and selling of cars in the street.
Seconded, Councillor Kavanagh. Councillor Bolton.
Just to explain the background to this, this is a long-running issue. It's been going for around 16 years, probably intermittently as residents complain, get sick of complaining and give up, and then gets worse and complain again. Basically, there are several mechanics workshops along Gaffney Street opposite where Webb Street comes on to Gaffney Street, so it's just the northern part of Webb Street. And the mechanics workshops, which is probably pretty usual for mechanics workshops, don't provide parking for their workers, or very little. I don't think they provide any parking. Now, maybe this wouldn't be such a bad problem if it was just one mechanics workshop rather than several mechanics workshops. But not only do the workers park their cars in the along Gaffney Street and Webb Street, the mechanics workshop also parks cars waiting to be repaired that have been repaired, also does mechanical repairs on some of the cars in the street, maybe not all the time, but some of the time. Often there are up to 5. At the moment, there are 5 unregistered cars parked in the street. Over Christmas, there were 2 trucks and 2 buses parked in that part of the street. Now, obviously, council has to go through certain processes with unregistered cars. It can't just come and tow them away, but there's a certain time lag. But then they might be sold. Like, there seems to be some sort of trading going on. And, probably one of the key complainants is a night shift worker who gets home and can't find anywhere to park his car. But in addition to that, the businesses have become extremely aggressive towards residents, and residents are now feeling, a lot of them, scared to complain. And there's been some vandalism of residents' cars as payback for complaining and so forth about the situation. There's also a traffic hazard where Webb Street intersects with Coburg North, because the number of cars parked in that area means that it's not very visible for cars entering onto Gaffney Street, and there have been some near misses because cars have to virtually come right out. That's, okay, explained it.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is there any debate on this item? No? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. Now, councillors, I have on 4 separate occasions neglected to take the advice that I need to extend time, and that happened about 45 minutes ago, so I sincerely apologise. Can I have a motion to extend the meeting by half an hour? Moved Councillor Gillies, seconded Councillor Tapanos. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. Councillor Bolton, any further general business items? No. Councillor Gillies? No. Councillor Kavanagh? Councillor Ratnam?
I have 2 items. The first item is in response to electronic gaming machines. So the motion is that Council express its continued concern about the impact that electronic gaming machines have on problem gamblers and their families in the Moreland community. And 2, write to the Minister for Local Government advising that Council intends to investigate implementing a differential rate that addresses the impact of problem gambling caused by electronic gaming machines in the next budget process, and to seek the Minister's view.
Thank you. Seconded Councillor Kavanagh. Councillor Ratnam.
As we've touched on this evening with the previous planning scheme amendment, Council is really committed to ensuring that we tackle this issue of problem gambling within our community, which we estimate costs our community more than $17 million lost amongst residents within a year, which is a really frightening amount of money and a frightening social and economic cost for our community. A number of other municipalities are struggling with very similar issues. Council had the ability to differentially rate gaming venues prior to the last couple of years, when the last government essentially took away our ability to differentially rate gaming venues. That was a significant arm and power of council to be able to regulate this social ill within our community. What we're seeking to do with hopefully with the change of government, and hopefully a new perspective and a new view within that government, is to start the talks about how we can reintroduce a differential rate, which is, as I said, such a strong tool that we need to have in our ability to combat this multi-million-dollar issue that's costing our community so much.
Thank you, Councillor Ratnam. Councillor Kavanagh.
Just briefly to say that I think it's an excellent motion. As Councillor Ratnam mentioned, we did have the ability to do so, and we were the first council in Victoria to do it. And unfortunately, that was taken away, our power to do that under the previous government, so it's worth trying again.
Thank you, Councillor Kavanagh. Is there any debate on this item? Yes, Councillor.
I'd like to speak briefly in favour as well, just to note that there's a very important principle at stake here, and that is the principle of local government being able to set its own rating strategy and to rate the community fairly as it sees fit. Now, I've seen that successive governments, including the current run, is seeking to change that and implement restrictions. This one will obviously be a rate cap, but the previous government's restrictions on our ability to charge was equally, in my view, inappropriate and probably, I would go as far as to say, undemocratic, in the sense that we, the councillors here, are elected by our local community to determine our budget after consultation. And the community said very loud and clearly that it wanted to council to invest more in services to deal with people in our community who are suffering from gambling addiction and who are problem gamblers, and we developed a very good program. We supported people who what was then More Connect, which was a program which took people who were addicted to poker machines and provided them with alternative social avenues, and the money went to fund such programs as that. And this program, I'm glad to say, councillors, has since, even though it was stopped in the years that the money was removed, it has since found other sources of revenue, and it has grown and expanded now to the northern region of Melbourne, and it is helping a lot of problem gamblers in our region, not just in Moreland. So this is just one of those innovative programs that was able to begin because of this money. So if we are able to get this back, we are able to take a little bit, and it's only a very small amount because it's based on the value of the property that has gaming machines, and invest it back into programs like this. And who knows what other programs this money in the future might come to, and how many more people might actually receive some help. It is a far better use, and it's just fair and right that people who are ripping out so much money from our community in gaming revenue, it's estimated to be about 70 or 80 million 5 years ago. It's probably dropped only slightly because of the increase in online gambling, but poker machines still probably rip out somewhere between $50 and $60 million out of our community every year.
Thank you, Councillor Tapanos. If there's no further debate, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. Councillor Ratnam.
So my second item is that the meeting minutes of the confidential section of Council's meeting on the 11th of February 2015 for agenda item DCS 1215, titled Outcome for Councillor Code of Conduct Panel, be released to the public. That the meeting minutes and associated documents, attachments, be released. That's the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ratnam. Is there a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Lenker-Thompson. Councillor Ratnam.
Can I move the procedural that the motion be put?
Councillor Rob Thompson has moved that the motion be put. All those in favour of putting the motion? All those against? Declare that carried. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. Any general business, Councillor Davidson?
Yes, I do. I am going on an overseas trip to Italy, and
Who's paying?
He said who's paying.
And I'd like to seek a leave of absence from council for the period of the 13th of July to the 17th of August.
Okay, is there a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Kavanagh. Councillor Davidson? Any further?
No.
No? Does council need to appoint a chair of UPC during your absence, or is it just arranged? With
Be appointed by UPC.
I think you're supposed to.
I think
You can, or you can
it's
do it
preferable that we appoint an acting chair of UPC during your absence.
In that case, I'd like to add another general business item. During my period on leave, I'd like to appoint Councillor Lambros Tapanos to chair the UPC, as he will be able to attend both the briefing and the committee meeting. I was initially going to appoint Councillor Ratnam, but she's unable to attend the briefing.
Okay, so I'll take those as two separate items as they've been moved separately. Councillor Kavanagh, are you happy to second both? Okay, in that case, I'll put to the vote Councillor Davidson's leave of absence. All those in favour? All those against?
He doesn't want you to go.
I declare that
Christmas
carried.
decorations.
All those in favour of appointing Councillor Tapanos as acting chair of Urban Planning Committee? All those against?
Thanks, Rob.
Declare that carried. Councillor Davidson, any further general business? No. Councillor Tapanos?
None from me.
Mine's confidential. Councillor Linker-Thompson?
Yes, I have one. So the motion is that council resolve that, one, the Mayor invite the Minister for Local Government, the Honourable Natalie Hutchins, to a meeting involving the Moreland City Council and the Moreland Energy Foundation CEOs to discuss A, the status of expanding environmental upgrade agreements to all councils and including residential buildings, and to B, the most expedient method of getting both legislative changes approved, which council can assist with. Two, following the meeting, that council continue to advocate for these legislative changes to progress and highlighting the net benefit such a model would provide to the people of Victoria and the reduction of carbon emissions. And that three, that council notify surrounding councils and the Northern Alliance of Greenhouse Action of this decision and ask them to join with us in this advocacy. If I have a second, I'll speak.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. So this motion speaks to an agreement, the environmental upgrade agreement, which could potentially unlock a lot of barriers that residents and businesses currently have in terms of putting solar panels on their roofs and implementing energy efficiencies in order to reduce their costs and also reduce the carbon emissions that the municipality releases. So at the moment, the state government has put on the table, has tabled legislative change in the Local Government Act for EUAs. They're called to be part of non-residential buildings, and that's being debated right now. It was actually debated today in the state government, but while that's good for non-residential, we still really need to push forward with the legislative change for residential buildings. And this sort of speaks to Council's zero carbon evolution strategy, where we're really trying to get solar panels on people's roofs. And the agreement, if this legislative change goes through, this will help financiers be able to fund the solar panels to be put on residential properties, and therefore the repayments to be paid back through the rate system. So there's a net benefit for people who are on low incomes and on pensioners who can't access that upfront capital to put the solar panels on, that they can loan it through the financiers and then pay back through the rate system. So it's a great way that the financiers, they stay, their risk is reduced because it's attached to the land, and also the net benefit goes to the residents who find it difficult to get the capital. So
thank you. Councillor Tapanos.
Can I just ask a question? Who was invited to the meeting?
Natalie Hutchins.
The Mayor, the Local Government Minister, and the CEOs from Moreland City Council and Moreland.
Any further debate on this item? No. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. Anything further, Councillor Thompson? Councillor Rob Thompson? Councillor Yildiz? No? In that case, can I please have a motion to add an item of general business under confidential business?
Yep, I'm happy to move
Moved
that.
Councillor Yildiz. Somebody to
Sorry, I
second.
just nodded my head.
Yeah, seconded Councillor Gillies. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Come on, raise your hands if you're in favour. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against? Okay, I declare that carried. Can I please have a motion to close the meeting to the public? Moved Councillor Gillies, seconded Councillor Yildiz. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. Thank you to the public and thank you to all of those watching at home. We'll now move to confidential business.